here, I want to get over Gerudo Town, so let me give you a little bit of a taste of what this does. Okay, so tile jumping is actually some pretty exciting stuff, because you know how you can gain infinite height with Gust Gyro, which I've made a tutorial on, right? You can also pretty much gain infinite height with just the flying tile as well. It's a lot harder, but you only need one echo. You only need you only need flying tile, and that's it, basically. Have you ever gotten the cloud echo in this game? I'm sure if you've played this game to completion, like, you've gotten the cloud echo, right? You can gain like infinite height essentially with the cloud. Well, the cloud is super late game, right? What if you wanted to do that or something like that before you got the cloud? Well, it's a lot harder, but you're in luck because it's possible. It's possible with just the flying tile. So there are a couple of places to get flying tile. There are 2 places in the game, as far as I know, to get the flying tile. Place number 1 where you can get a flying tile is right here. Now, these aren't glowing because I've already gotten a flying tile in this file, but before they even come out of the ground, you can just reach over and grab them. They're right at the beginning of Gerudo Sanctum, and we get them in Glitchless because they are one of the most useful echoes in the game. So yeah, that's place number 1. Place number 2 is in a random cave north of Gerudo Town, which we get in all dungeons restricted. And I want to get over Gerudo Town, so let me give you a little bit of a taste of what this does. Oh, well, here, okay, you know what? We're gonna clear this rift so that I can show you the cave, because the cave is in the rift. I didn't even know that this cave was covered by a rift after Hyrule Castle, apparently. That's apparently a thing. It's not covered before Hyrule Castle, I don't think, but yeah, see, there's the cave right there. So just make believe this cave is not in the stilled world. It's probably the same. Yeah, it's in here, except this guy's not here. So you can grab it here if you want to. The Redead is not usually here. Pay this guy no mind. But yeah, so either in the stilled world or not in the stilled world, you can grab a flying tile in this room as well. I did manage to demonstrate a little bit about how to tile jump, or tile chain. Really, as far as I know, it doesn't have a proper name yet. I just call it tile jumping. It's simple. It's easy to understand, I guess. If I say tile jumping, you probably know what I'm talking about. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. Maybe you don't. But that's why I'm here to show you that this is what tile jumping is. That's a tile jump. When you jump from one tile to another. Now, this is not to be confused with something you can do after you reach, I believe, level 6 tri-power, which is the amount of tri that you need to spawn 2 flying tiles. I don't have 6 tri-power right now. So just keep that in mind. If you have 6 tri-power, you can just spawn another one as you're landing on the tile that you spawned before, and you can gain height that way. We do that once in Null's body in Glitchless. So one thing you want to do here, one thing you want to keep in mind about tile jumping is that it is entirely position-based. So this game is comprised of tiles all over the place. You can't really see them that well in this area, so probably not a great spot. You know what is a good spot, though? Is inside Gerudo Sanctum. So these are what tiles look like. You can see when I place a flying tile, it will always be within one of these tiles, even if it's diagonal. For the sake of ease of viewing, I'll only place them cardinally, but you can see they will always just fix themselves to one of the tiles. They can only, in other words, they can only be placed on a whole tile. And each of these tiles on the ground here represent a whole tile. With me so far? So, because of that fact, because of the fact that tiles can only occupy a whole tile when they spawn, when you want a tile jump, Zelda's position is of paramount importance, because if Zelda is too close to a tile, when she tries to jump up onto it after you spawn it, that's gonna happen. When she's too close to the tile, she won't make it up. Like, there has to be a certain amount of space between Zelda and the tile when you spawn it for this to work, right? For you to jump, then spawn a tile in very quick succession. That's basically what's happening here. For you to be able to jump up on the tile as is. Now, this is why position is super important, because Zelda, unlike the flying tile, can occupy any space at all without problem. Like, she's not fixed to a tile. This isn't Zelda 1, right? So Zelda has free movement. The tiles do not. Therefore, Zelda's position is what you want to pay attention to. You want to either be on the edge of a tile like this. If so, say I'm moving right? You want to jump off of the end of a tile or at the very beginning of a new one. So either from like from here or from here. And when you spawn a tile from here, when you jump here and spawn a tile, the tile's going to appear on this spot right here. It's going to essentially appear a tile and a half ahead of where Zelda is, right? If you spawn it from here, it's going to spawn on one tile away, but you have just enough room to get up there. I find it way more consistent to use the end of a tile like this, like to use like the far end of a tile to jump up. That's pretty consistent, right? So Zelda's position really matters here. Another thing to keep in mind here, how close your inputs are. When you pay attention to the position here, how close your inputs are don't matter a terrible amount as long as they're not like super far apart. Like, they do have to be pretty quick, but they don't have to be like, it's not frame perfect or anything. Like, just as long as you like, you take your thumb and you're basically just like, you're like that. Like, that's what I do. When I tile jump, you press B and Y in quick succession with your thumb, and it should work. I think some people might like slide their thumb from B to Y. I personally find that less consistent, but do what works for you. Do what's best for you, as is the case in all things speedrunning. Do what's best for you. Do what is the most consistent. So, another thing to keep in mind is the fact that Zelda only places an echo when you let go of the Y button. If you hold the Y button, she's either going to place a distance echo or just hold the tri-rod out if you don't have access to distance echoes yet. So like if you do Gerudo Desert or Gerudo Sanctum second, you won't have access to distance echoes. You'll get them after you finish Gerudo, right? But you want to make sure that you're aware of that fact. Zelda will only place an echo when Y is let go of. So with that being said, you don't really want to hold Y, right? Otherwise, you're introducing a whole new element of potential failure. So you want to let go of Y as soon as possible. So just tap it. You just want to like tap B and Y in very quick succession while running off the end of a tile. Now, sometimes the end of that tile is the flying tile. That is how you tile jump. Of course, this ceiling is too low for me to actually do it consistently here, so let's go outside. Now that you know how tiles work, let's go outside. That's not outside. Let's go outside. And when you know that a flying tile occupies a tile always when you just place it normally, you can just do this until you hit the friggin' ceiling. You can do this to your heart's content. Now, keep in mind that without the frog ring on, the frog ring lets you double your jump height, right? Without the frog ring on, this becomes a lot more difficult and your position becomes a lot more tight. You need to really pay attention to where you jump off from. Like, chaining tile jumps like that is a lot harder when you don't have the frog ring. It's also a lot harder when the game drops in frame rate from 60 to 30 FPS or even 20 FPS. I find that a lot harder, and I think it's because sometimes your jump input just gets eaten, or it doesn't happen on the right frame, or doesn't happen at the right time. So just be aware that the consistency of this trick will go down for you, most likely, when the frame rate drops to 30 FPS. Okay, so here's an application of tile jumping in the glitchless run. Stuff like this is what makes this tech so cool to do. The very beginning of this particular section, this is pre-Hyrule Castle. This is right after you enter the Stilled world before you actually enter Stilled Hyrule Castle. You have this barracks, right? You have this, this house that you come out of. You're immediately going to use the flying tile to get up on top of the house, right? And what I do here is I tile jump twice, and keep in mind at this point, first off, I have the cloak on, and second off, I don't have the frog ring, so this is a little difficult to do. At least the first two are. This to me is the fastest and most consistent way of doing this particular trick. Okay, so I'm gonna place a tile here, and I'm gonna do 1, 2. Now from here, I didn't do it quickly enough because I wanted to like make sure you understood that I was on the tile, I guess. I don't know. But here, let me load the save. From that point on, I'm going to be doing distance echoes out in front of me after these first 2 tile jumps. So I'm going to do 1, 2, and then I'm going to stand like kind of on the back of the tile. For whatever reason, when you stand on the front of the tile at this point, your distance echo just won't work. I don't know what that's about, to be completely honest with you. We haven't really figured that out yet, but sometimes the distance echo will just fail. I find that it usually will not fail if you're standing on like the back half of the tile. So just keep that in mind. So you do 1, 2, and you stand on the back half of the tile, send out a distance echo, and spin jump onto it. I failed it there. Don't worry about it. First time I've ever failed it in my life. Believe it or not. Not true. So 1, 2, distance echo, stand on the back half of it, release it, spin jump onto it. Do that twice. And you're here. And you skipped half of that stilled section. And then from here, you can either do tile jump off of this, which I just failed, of course, first time ever. And that's another thing to note too, is that you can use this tech as well to just kind of keep moving as you jump off a corner. Like if you, for instance, if you come across a gap that you can't quite clear with a jump and you don't want to come up to it and stop and place a flying tile and then jump, you can do this. Of course, there is risk involved, but just keep in mind, as long as this is the edge of a tile, of a tile on the ground, a ground tile, I'll call it, as opposed to a flying tile. This is the edge of a ground tile. As long as you're on the edge of that tile, you're good. It's the same thing. It's the same application. For the longest time, by the way, for the longest time, we thought that this was just luck. Until we realized, oh, hey, you know, the relative position between Zelda and the flying tile is, like, important. And you can see, like, when I do it correctly, the tile spawns way further out in front of me, and that's what makes it work. As opposed to, I intentionally failed it there, believe it or not. I intentionally failed that. As opposed to when you jump off of the middle of a tile, it won't work, because there's just not enough space for Zelda to get up there. Right? Like, I'm intentionally failing it right now to show you what that looks like. So I'm jumping from the middle of the flying tile, and it's never going to work. It's legit never going to work. Now, if I do it from the edge, it works. But yeah, this tech is really cool. Have fun. And of course, like, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I'm all ears. I'm all ears with it. Is this an infinitely falling point? Wow. That's funny. I've never been up on this castle before.